Pretty nasty smell to it, that stuff, so I'll put that respirator straight back on, but you can see nice clean steel. We'll let that phosphoric acid do its thing overnight, let it bite into any rust that's there. It's going to turn blue overnight. All the clean steel is going to turn blue. That's to be expected. And then I'll give that a sand off. Sand that sort of top layer off. So it's looking pretty good after leaving it overnight. I had a big session there last night, put a good couple of hours in. Got that roof all bare metaled with the big buff there. So it's that like a 9-inch pad and a bit of 16 grit, believe it or not. That's 16 grit. I left it on a relatively sort of medium speed. I didn't go ultra fast. So what are we on there? 4 and a bit, so it's just over, it'll probably be like 1600 RPM, something like that, 1600 RPM, so not ultra fast. I was being careful not to hang on one spot for too long, so what I was doing is I was going a bit over here, and then you'd move over here to let that bit sort of cool down, and then do a bit there, and then a bit there, so you're not sort of like hanging in one spot. You're not sort of like, you're not doing it the way that you would usually buff a car, sort of like systematically do it bit by bit. Or even orbital sanding. When you're orbital sanding, you just sort of systematically go over the car like that. I deliberately wasn't doing that last night because I didn't want to get too much heat in it and warp those panels, which I didn't. I'm pretty happy with that little weld up there. So someone had gone and put a aerial in this at one point. So the SLR 5000s, some of them did actually have an aerial in the roof, but this model here didn't actually come out with it. That's why I did decide to plug it up, make it a little bit more original. But yeah, like even inside all these gutter rails, you know, they're looking nice and neat. I did spend a little bit of time in there with the wire wheel. But I did leave that phosphoric acid on overnight to help bite in, so I can see that it's actually done its job around here. And I'm at the point where I think phosphoric acid is the best rust converter out. And if you're not using a phosphoric acid based rust converter, I'd say you probably should be. Because I had already cleaned these up and used a standard rust converter on there, and it obviously hadn't finished doing all of the work that it could have. Even here you can see it sort of started biting in. So yeah, because I've left that on overnight, that phosphoric acid does kind of have like a bit of a crusty layer. If I was to go on epoxy straight over that, it probably wouldn't stick, because that crusty layer may not be sticking to that bare metal the best. So that's why I am going to get an orbital sander with some 80 on. I might even be 180 grit, might actually cut it off quicker or something. Sometimes you do find that, because the bits of sand on the sandpaper are actually closer together. You can actually find sometimes like a finer grit can actually be more effective on things like that. As far as the dust goes, it actually wasn't as bad as what you might think. Like most of the dust, because you've got like such a coarse grit sandpaper on that buff, it's all very heavy. So you can see there, they're like, it comes off in such big chunks. It's not, and most of it isn't very fine, so it stays around that area. Like if you look around most of this place here, it does have a little bit, but it's not like the whole place is just covered in really thick dust. So yeah, anyway, that's about where we're up to. Look, there was some sort of rough spots around here. The roof's been jumped on at one point by the looks of it. So look, I'm just going to do my best to sort of push what I can up, and I'll just bog that back up. So that's going to be fine. But all in all, the roof was actually in pretty good condition. You can see I did a couple of little weld ups through here. Maybe not the absolute neatest, but there was literally, big holes there. I'm going to do what I usually do with things like that. I'll put the epoxy on, and then I will give that a bit of a skim with some fiberglass filler, and then continue on with the standard 2-pack filler. But yeah, as I say, the next step, I'm going to be getting that orbital sander of mine out, and yeah, having fun. But yeah, I also got this door into epoxy primer last night. I actually kind of, like, part of the reason I did stop on this car for a little bit was because I was actually waiting for this Quartz 2K epoxy zinc primer, so zinc rich, isocyanate free. I did actually ask Chris a few questions about this last night. I said, is there any advantage to the ISO free, and what's the go with the zinc? And he basically said the zinc has good adhesion properties, and it's going to like anti-corrosion properties in it. Also, he said some of the isocyanate free is supposedly popular with those like myself who are doing restorations at home. So, it's not as toxic as the isocyanate products. And he was also saying that some other companies, they have isocyanates in it, but it doesn't bond quite as well with the isocyanate. Like it doesn't adhere, like you don't get as good adhesion to it. But anyway, it's an epoxy primer. So for those of you who do not know, basically there's three main advantages. You've got your adhesion, you've got your corrosion protection, and then you've also got the fact that it's non-porous. So normal primers, like normal 2-pack primers, they are porous, kind of like your skin, kind of like body filler. It can actually take in some moisture. That's why we do need to get a good quality epoxy, or at the very least, even just like an acid etch. So he was actually saying that this is like an acid base as well. But look, to be honest, I am not a chemist, so I don't know everything about the chemical structure of what's going on inside the paint, but I know the basic idea and the basic advantages of your epoxy primers. So this one is a 3:1:1, and I find it dries nicer. Some of the other epoxy primers, they have like a recoat window of up to 7 days, which is quite insane. But I found this one, so they've got like an 8-hour window, 8-hour recoat window before it needs sanding, that is, which to me it's better. Like the epoxy primer that I used on the doors here, this is a U-pole stuff, and I just got runs all through it because it was staying wet for way too long. Yeah, it was a bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest. So I find this stuff here was definitely easier to work with. So I decided I'm actually just going to use this. So I did pop on some 60 grit, so it's a little bit finer than what I was using last night to get the paint off. But yeah, another thing that's very important when you're working with phosphoric acid, wear your respirator, because that is that's a nasty, very strong chemical. So put that respirator on. Alright, geez, that's still some nasty shit, man. I can feel it in my eyes. I nearly should have been wearing a full face mask, to be honest. But I definitely will be for the next stage. Eye protection at least. Air protection. But you never do, honey, there's a reason why we lose. Ready to explore right up in the sky. Need you to listen, I need you to feel. And the shore, and the shore. Trying to protect your soul. One minor thing that I have noticed about that quartz epoxy primer is that when you're cleaning the gun out, it's like the spray gun cleaner which I use doesn't quite clean it. Like, it cleans it okay, but not quite 100%. It's like it nearly starts curdling. I don't know if that's like a property of the zinc or if it's the isocyanates free, but yeah, I mean, it's not a massive issue. Like, you can still get it clean, but it seems to take a little bit longer to clean out. And yeah, it's like I need to actually give that gun a good strip down when I do start using it for normal 2-pack primer filler. Just one little thing worth possibly noting. Apart from that, guys, I hope you did enjoy watching this video. We do have another video coming up next week, so I hope you have been enjoying the series. And until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.